Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again so much for our time together. When I was a young boy, I grew up very poor, on welfare, in a bad part of a bad town. When I was 14, I was sent by the police to live with my father, who was a very prosperous man. And one of the lessons he had to teach me was what you have or don't have doesn't make any difference in who you are. As a young boy growing up poor, wore my dead grandfather's clothes to school and things when I was in junior high, I was used to always backing up to people that had money. And if people had money, then you just learn to remember your place, so to speak. I remember I was working on a car with my father. I was maybe 14, maybe 15 years old then. And we needed some parts, so we drove over to Mobile to get the parts. And we were standing in line, and we were covered in grease. I mean, especially me, because he was always on top of the car, and I was always underneath the car. But we were covered in grease. And a very fancy dressed person came in, so I just stepped back out of the way, and this guy pushed himself through. And my father stopped him and said, the end of the line's back there. And I looked at my dad, and I said, Dad, he's rich. My dad said, rich doesn't make it right. And then he began to realize that I needed to change the way I thought. And he began to teach me that money doesn't change who you are. It might be an amplifier of who you are, but it doesn't change who you are. Money doesn't make a person proud, but it can amplify the pride in a person's heart. Money doesn't make a person arrogant, but it can amplify the arrogance in their heart. And money, or lack of money, doesn't change who you are either. Now look at what the scripture says here in Psalms chapter 34 in our devotions today. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. I wrote wow next to that in my Bible. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles. Maybe you're listening to me today, and you're listening on your son or your daughter's cell phone, or you're listening on a friend's computer, and you don't have much right now, and life has not been very easy. I want you to remember that the poor man calls, and God hears. Maybe you're going through some real financial challenges right now, and you don't have a seed to sow, and you don't have tithe to give, and you're thinking, well, God hear me. Well, God doesn't answer prayer because of money. God answers prayer because of grace and because of mercy. We come boldly to the throne of mercy, and we find grace. We come boldly to the throne of God, and He answers the poor man. Now, if you're listening to me today, and life has been a little difficult lately, would you please quit putting yourself down and quit thinking that God won't hear you because you have nothing? This poor man called, and the Lord, number one, heard him, and number two, the Lord saved him from all his trouble.